afternoon. Hello. Okay, now I'm going to talk about something that is probably in our minds. The world is changing, AI is coming, like the technology is here, but what about the people? So I'm going to talk about a study we did. It's called the AI and Digital Gap Study because it's focusing on who is being left behind. And this started out of a thinking. We thought, okay, Portugal and the digital transition, what is the real reality behind the hype? Why aren't we moving so fast? So much investment, so many people are investing so much in this. Why aren't we getting all the results? So we went out to do a study. Basically, the study is a meta-analysis of several studies that exist, and we found out that there is a big divide, and I'm going to talk about that divide. The divide is basically because Portugal, as you know, have a world-class infrastructure. We have good infrastructure. However, there's a large majority of population and of companies that are being left behind, that are not yet fully digital, fully AI ready. So what we did is this meta-analysis, and we took three lenses. The first lens is individuals, so people in general, the population. The second lens is companies, of course, big enterprises, but also small startups and small SMEs. And finally, let's look also at the AI factor. And why this study? Why did we actually do this meta-analysis? First of all, because the studies are not connecting among themselves, so each study studies a reality. And second, we only look at the averages, and the averages actually hide a very different reality that I hope to show you today. So first, let's go for the good news. Good news is, well, Portugal is one of the most connected countries in Europe, in the world. We have a lot of excellent infrastructures, internet, broadband, mobile coverage. We have a lot of households online, majority of them, 9 out of 10. We have internet daily usage, and we have a lot of services already, from public services, and we had here the Secretary of State today, banking, you name it, and everybody's using them. So that's the good news. However, if we go deeper, we find a different analysis. We find different reality. Kind of like an iceberg, if we go and dig deeper into the individuals, we found an interesting statistic that 1 million Portuguese never used internet. 1 million, it's 10% almost, right? So 9 point something. Then we also learned that majority of people, 44%, of course, don't have the basic digital skills. So we still have a big fraction of the population that is not fully digital. And of course, AI is a mirage. On the other side, small and medium enterprises, we also have the same reality. 700,000 SMEs Portugal are not digital at all, are still working on papel, Excel, Emmanuel. And we have half of the population of these, the small and medium enterprises, which are still low in terms of digital intensity. So a harsh reality. But let's look at first the individuals, the first lens. So we have a lot of gaps. I'm going to talk about several gaps. The first one is education. Here, of course, we all know, technology, we all experiment that. But if we go for lower education, you see there's a huge gap from, 66 percentage points that separates us from people with less education. Second divide is the age divide. Of course, the young, 16 to 24, are very digital already, but the old, the elderly, 65 onwards, are not. Again, a big gap. The third gap, the third divide, is gender, of course. If you look at, how women actually are with the digital, I'm not talking about the participation in the tech industry, but especially how digital they are, you also see a big gap, 41 percentage points to the, higher education one. And finally, geographic divide is also playing an important part. We're looking at, urban areas versus the rural areas, and you see the gap as well, 20 percentage points, of course, a big difference. So there is an exclusion risk for all of this. And we also dive into other verticals like other problems that we see in society, disabilities, clearly, and social economic conditions. What about the companies? Again, the same. We saw that there is two-speed economy in Portugal. Of course, you have the leaders, the large enterprises, maybe all of us here. These guys are high in terms of intensity, have excellent numbers, but when you compare it to the other side, the laggards, you see the gap again. You see there's a big difference between what we call, the big corporations, even the startups, and then you compare it to the SMEs. The SMEs are still below in online presence, in cloud adoption, in data, in digital processes, and even in e-commerce. So we still have a big difference, which is a productivity risk, because we want to raise productivity, but we don't know how. Well, the laggards are the answer. So what about AI? Is this improving or even getting worse with AI? Well, I think that we all know that the AI is a multiplier. I would say that it's also a threat multiplier. I think it's a big threat to these gaps. So probably the speed of advancement of AI will increase even more these asymmetries. Now let's look at the individuals. As you can see, when we compare Portugal to the European Union, to top performers in Europe, but also Singapore, which is worldwide considered one of the examples in digital and AI adoption. Well, you see that adoption is not a problem in Portugal. We have above average in Europe, although still below top performance and Singapore. But if we look at professional use, and that's interesting, and if you start asking your friends in a dinner, you will see the difference. I use it, but how advanced use I do, Portugal still is behind the European Union for sure, but also, only 20% of people use AI professionally, which means that we still have a big gap. So there's a big gap in adoption, also in professional use, and especially I want to focus the AI skills gap, which means that, a lot of people in Portugal are still below in AI fluency. And many of us here, probably, we feel this every day. Every day there's a new engine, there's a new tool, there's a new thing coming, and we always trying to learn and trying to catch up. And now, of course, statistics say that 6 out of 10 Portuguese will need to be reskilled until 2030. Looking at the companies, it's even more interesting. Why? Because the differences that were in terms of digital proficiency, we saw the differences. In here, you see even more. You see the leaders are already jumping into AI, using AI technologies, having teams dedicated to this, really investing in AI. 42%, which means it's a very powerful, according to Europe as well, statistic. But we see a laggards, that the small and medium enterprises. What we see, only 8% are using AI professionally, not ChatGPT or conversational, but AI as a part of their business. So there's the big divide again. There are many gaps to explore. So what? What can we do with this? So I think that it's pretty obvious that Portugal has a problem, not a problem of connectivity, of infrastructures. We have that covered. I think we have a good system. However, when we look at human and organizational readiness, our capability is still below. So that's why we're still in that quadrant, and the challenge is to move to the right top quadrant. And we need to accelerate not only technology, but also how people actually use technology. And this is kind of a study that we did related to the speed. The current pace of Portugal is below the top performance, so we need to catch up fast. And in a good study that we saw, according to the targets that were defined by European Union, also for the government, we need to accelerate the speed of adoption and professional usage. However, the problem is we're kind of, in a train with excellent rails, infrastructure is there. We have a good first part of the train, which is modern, it's really dominating, but we have the laggards kind of pushing the train to go slower. Both SMEs and, of course, all of the small minorities that we talked that really are not helping the speed of Portugal. So after this, we defined 4 imperatives, 4 things that we need to do differently. And they are basically improving the way the narrative is happening in the government. First of all, we need to raise the bar. How do we raise the bar? Well, first of all, we need to continue supporting and even investing more in the champions. So the champions should be supported, both in AI and digital. If they are leading, let's pour some more gasoline because they're going to go fast. And they're going to inspire us as well. Second, we have to change from digital literacy to digital fluency. And of course, AI is not only literacy that we should focus, but more on top of that, we have to AI fluency, because professional use is what actually changes the productivity. Besides raising the bar, improving our averages in a way that is consistent, we also have to work with the laggards, with the ones that are staying behind. The third imperative is basically make all the AI and digital reskilling and upskilling much more inclusive. So far, what we have been doing is slightly elitist. So we need to find ways to translate technology usage to the masses, to the ones that are leaving behind. And fourth, of course, we have to also take care of our SMEs, and we have to find the capillarity. I know that the majority of the companies here, majority of the big consultancy groups, they will not, invest in going after each SME that is still stuck in Papel, Excel, and Manuel, as I always say. So I think we have to find that capillarity. And this is basically what we wanted to share with you. The findings from this study is basically that if we want to go faster, if we want to go further, we need to make this a more inclusive journey, a more inclusive journey to bring everyone on board. That's what we do in Fledge Institute, so more than happy to talk with you if you want to about this. Thank you very much. There's a QR code if you want to study and get early access for that. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.